realized these past few years that God has brought me to such a place of rest and trust in who he is. I've realized that having an accurate view of God that allows me to be in a thriving, vibrant relationship with him has motivated me more than anything else to want to do the work of counseling. I knew the pain it could cause, like struggling with your view of God and being, overly worried about things, and I wanted to help other people not be stuck there. So, fast forward to the end of my master's degree. I went to Cincinnati Christian University, and it was a great place to learn how to be a counselor. But I didn't know where I was going to work after that, and I had loans to pay. It didn't make sense at the time to move back to small town Kansas and start a counseling ministry, although, everywhere can use a counseling ministry. It made more sense for me to stay here in Cincinnati. The only jobs really that were available in this area at that time that I was looking at were working with children. And I love children, and I have a cognate in children's ministry, but I don't have any interest in counseling children because that is a different animal. So I wasn't really didn't feel called to, be a children's counselor. So I sat around that summer. I moved into my own apartment. I applied for jobs, and I think I remember making a lot of cookies that summer because I just didn't have anything else to do. It's kind of sitting around what is the next step? That's not a good combination. Anyways, towards the end of the summer, I started to work for a company called Solutions Community Counseling and Recovery Centers. And the way I ended up choosing to work there was really quite interesting. Basically, I couldn't get a job anywhere else. So I ended up at Solutions. It was not my first choice, partly because the office I was going to be in was in Wilmington, which is between here and Columbus. It's almost an hour's drive from here. Who wants to commute an hour to work every day? I didn't. So it was the door that opened, and I chose to walk through it. And actually, I found out that the supervisor I would work under there had graduated from the same Christian master's program that I had gone to. The social worker, my coworker in the office right next door to me, was a pastor's wife, and just things were kind of maneuvering into place. Things were going well. They were looking up. I recommend to most counseling students who are entering the field as a licensed professional that they actually work in a community counseling agency starting off, because there is nothing like the challenge and the stretching and the experience you get from working in that kind of setting. My job was to work with adults in the outpatient program, and I was diagnosing, treating mental health disorders. And most of the people we worked with also had co-occurring substance use disorders. Many of them were referred by the local court system. Many of them didn't want to be there. So it was a great experience. I actually learned that confrontation can be a really good thing. It doesn't have to be a bad, uncomfortable thing. So I was gaining experience of what counseling was about and what it looked like in the community. I also learned that counseling, and I would say really, really any kind of ministry with people, but especially counseling, will expose you to the depth of suffering that there is in the world. I also ask, in one of the initial classes I teach here in counseling, I ask my students to read a book on suffering. If you sign up for that class, you can look forward to it. Because your sense of God's goodness will be challenged or shaken when you see so much pain in people that you now can put a name to. And I remember really struggling with that during my time at Solutions. I was working with a particular situation where just the repeated evil that had been enacted in a person's life by others, quite frankly, made me almost feel physically nauseous at times. I struggled with a concept of why or how God would allow that to allow whatever X, Y, and Z to happen for that person. And I remember God speaking to me so clearly and saying that the pain this person experienced mattered to him because I was there attending to that pain. He was showing his compassion to them. He was showing them, hey, this matters because you're in their life attending to this, and paying attention to that pain. Now, that's not about me. That's just how God cares about humanity. I think back to one of the revival messages a few weeks ago where it was pointed out to us, God, for whatever reason, really likes to use people to relate his message. Now, ministry in a secular place often looks like us being the loving and caring representatives of Jesus. During my time at Solutions, I also had the opportunity to work in our crisis program. We did a couple things with local organizations. One of those was we would work with our police department, usually in the evenings and on the weekends, to have a representative who would be on site, ride around with them, and help respond to mental health issues they might face in the community. So I did that for a while. And the other part of the crisis program that we worked in was our local hospitals were small enough that they didn't have their own psychiatric staff. So if somebody would come into the emergency department and they were feeling suicidal, or they were having hallucinations, or having some kind of mental health symptoms, the hospital didn't really have anybody on staff to screen those issues or address those problems. So our team would contract with them to go in and provide those screening services. And then if somebody needed a more long-term stay due to mental health issues, we would help link them to an area hospital that could keep them safe for however long that they needed. That was very interesting work as well. It often meant that your phone would ring in the middle of the night and you got to go into the hospital before going into work the next day. A while after I quit working in that program, I would still kind of get shivers whenever I would hear my phone ringtone. That was the same ringtone I used during that time, because who wants to get up at 2 a.m. and do that? Anyways, it was really good experience because you were meeting people at their worst, darkest moments. And to have someone calm and safe who can know what to do and can help people through those moments is a powerful ministry. Now, some of the people I saw during this time identified as Christian, and I could easily bring God into the conversation, for those individuals, for those relationships. But usually in professional counseling, you actually have to do for people what God typically does for us, which is you have to respect a person's right to choose so much that you don't insist that God has to be the person they trust in. Now, as a Christian counselor for many people, and well, probably really for all people, you have to let them come to that conclusion sometimes over a period of time or on their own. I love how Dallas Willard puts it. He says that God is very gentle, and if you don't want to see him, you don't have to. And as a professional counselor working in a secular setting where there are some limits on how you go about being a believer, I find it so encouraging to see that God could use my personality or just my love and compassion and care to be the thing that represented him or helped that person farther down the road maybe consider that God also loved them and cared about them. I also knew without a shadow of a doubt that some of the people that I was interacting with, they were people that were not going into a church to hear a sermon. I knew that some of the people that I might say a prayer for maybe had no other living soul praying for them. I was in people's lives that probably no other believer was that close and that personal in their lives. And I saw that as such an opportunity, again, to just live Jesus' love towards them. Now, I believe that we need pastors, and we need missionaries, and we need godly parents raising their kids to love Jesus. But you'd better believe we also need people out there with the rest of the population who aren't ever going to come into those traditional ministry contexts. Are you wondering where you should go to do your ministry? Anywhere that there's people. That is a mission field. Counseling has been the way that has made the most sense to me and, my unique personality to share God's love and passion with others. And I would leave you with this quote and challenge you with this thought, again, from Dallas Willard. He challenges us to consider, how would Jesus live your life with your personality, with your talents, with your life experiences, within your life context, if he were you? Wherever you're at in the stages of figuring out your calling, I challenge you to go from here and do the thing that you can't help but do. Do the thing that you are so, that makes you feel so alive that you can't help but do that work. The thing that brings God's passion for people to life and using your gifts. And that's all I have.